Hi everyone, welcome to Northern Zen Yoga. My name is Sandra, and today we are going to be looking at Warrior 2. Last video, we did Warrior 1, and in Warrior 1, we looked at the imaginary line that was down the middle of our mat. I'll just lift this up so you can see mine. I have a permanent line drawn here. That's for educational purposes so that you can see what I'm doing with my feet. But in Warrior 1, we had our feet on either side of the line that we have down the center of the mat. That was for being able to keep our hips facing forward comfortably without putting any undue strain on the low back. Now, in the low back, there's this couple of little hinge joints that are in the pelvis. They're called SI joints or sacral iliac joints. And these joints, they have a very, very minimal amount of movement. Basically, what they're there for is to prevent you from having stress fractures in your pelvis from putting a little bit too much pressure on the direction that your leg is being moved or pushed, or things of that nature that from the hip joint, where the great ball joint comes together here, when we start to move our leg this way, if we have our pelvis a little bit too rigid, it puts a lot of stress onto the pelvic area. So the SI joint is there to kind of just give it a little bit of movement to take the pressure off. It's not meant to be torqued in any way or to be pushed around in any way that would start to force the opening of the joint past its natural ability. However, it's been discovered that in some of the yoga postures, this has been the case, and over time, yogis were having a lot of issues with the low back, and this is the reason why. So we've made a few adjustments to the warrior postures in particular in order to be able to take care of our low back and not cause any unnecessary pain. Now, when you're first starting out in yoga, we find that any position we put our bodies into is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay. As long as you're not feeling pain. Pain is the big indicator that you are moving your body into a place where it doesn't want to go. So uncomfortable, achy stretch, well, we can live with that. But anything where you can feel a sharp jab or an intense pressure of pain happening, you need to back off right away. Keep that in mind no matter what practice you're doing, no matter what yoga pose you're doing. If it hurts too much, stop doing it. If it's just a little bit of ache, keep with it. So we're going to have a look at the feet position first, how to place your feet on the mat, and then the arm position and where that goes and how the whole posture looks and how you can start to modify the pose itself in order to get more stretch from it as you become used to the pose. So I'll be right back in a second. Just going to have another sip of my tea and we'll have a look at Warrior 2. Good stuff. So here we are. We're standing on the mat and you see I've got my imaginary line, which I've drawn in here so that you don't have to use your imagination to see it, so that I know where my positioning of my feet are going to go. Now, I recommend that you do this, and I'm sorry that my feet are talking to you, but I recommend you do this in order to be able to see what you're doing for the first little while that you begin doing yoga. So the front foot is going to be on the line. So make sure when you put your foot down that you put the heel down, spread your toes out, place your toes firmly down so that you're putting pressure into your entire foot. Your knee is in a slightly bent position to begin with. And then we're going to take the back foot and we're going to step back and we're going to find the imaginary line for our heel to land on. And here I have got not a really wide stance, as wide as I could go, but you might find that even as far back as I am right now, that's a little bit too much for you. So wherever you are, however close this back heel is, as long as you're not standing like this, as long as you've got a little bit of a lunge happening, that you take notice of where your knee and where your ankle are. If you're upright without leaning forward and you look down, you should be able to see your toes down here wiggling. That's how you know that you're in the right foot position and you're in the right body position and your knee is in the right position. So that's the front foot. Facing forward, knee is bent in a lunge position. The knee and the ankle are either in line with each other or slightly behind. The knee is slightly behind the ankle, but I don't want this. None of this. This, even as I'm doing this, I can feel pain happening here in my knee joint, and we want to avoid that. So we're going to back it up, much more comfortable, much more doable. And then we're going to look at the back leg. And the back leg is nice and straight. Now it's hard to see it in this particular angle, but my heel is actually further back than my toes. This would be if I was parallel to the back of the mat. Now, we used to teach this, and I want you to move your foot into that position without changing anything else and see what you're feeling right now. Right now, you're probably feeling a lot more pressure in your front knee to begin with. And the other thing you're going to feel is you're going to feel back here in your back. You're going to feel something pulling. Well, that's your SI joint I was talking about, trying to open up and compress the two bones, the hinge joint, together in a way they're not supposed to. So we're just going to turn that heel and push it just a little bit further out so that we have a little bit of an angle on our foot. And you'll notice right away that sensation will go away and you'll feel much more comfortable. It's a tiny little thing, but it works. And the chiropractors are very happy that we've changed that, because too many yogis were coming in with SI joint issues or lumbar spine issues from torquing their spine too much. So here I am. Here's my foot position. I'm feeling the pressure in the back leg. The back leg is talking to me. It's telling me that I am stretching. Front leg is telling me I'm working this big muscle. And from here, I'm going to change to so that you can see all of me, so that we can talk about how the rest of our body comes in line. But what I want you to see is that your hips are on a slight angle. They're not facing forward. They're not facing dead on. They're on this little bit of an angle. We've got our feet apart as wide as we feel comfortable doing it at this point, feeling a bit of a stretch in the muscles back here as we push the heel back into the floor. This leg is not caving in. It's nice and strong. And we're ready to balance ourselves in Warrior 2. All right, be back in a minute. Now that we've had a look at where the feet go on our imaginary line and the direction of our feet, we're going to look at different ways you can modify this particular posture in order to be able to get the most benefit from it as you begin to grow and get more flexible in your yoga practice. So, we have the front foot facing forward. We're putting our pressure into the whole foot. It's pressing down. Our back foot. Now this is where things get a little bit uncomfortable for people who are not too flexible in the hips. You do not have to have a big wide stance to begin with. You just need to keep yourself in a bent knee position, whatever that looks like for you at this particular time. Now, you can see I'm not very wide apart in my feet. I've still got my feet in the proper position. I've still got my hips coming in the direction I want them to go. They're not forward. They're not dead on. They're just a little bit of an angle. That's because we're taking care of this part of our back here. And my foot is on a slight angle with the heel back further than the toes are. So, stretching out the arms. And this also can become an issue for you. You can have issues with your shoulders and find that the arm extension is a little bit too much. So wherever you're at to begin with, if your arms are here, or your arms are here, what you don't want is to be trying to raise your arms up above shoulder level. So get the arms here. If this one kind of lags back and hangs back because you've got a tight shoulder here, so be it. Find your position. Look down the middle finger, and we're going to stare down that middle finger as we stretch our arms, reaching for the opposite sides of the room. So once you start to feel comfortable in that and your body starts to get used to that, you're working your yoga and your hips are getting much more flexible over the next few months. Now you can start to kick this leg back just a little further, until you find yourself in a position where, and it's very important, and I'm sliding a little bit too much on this mat because this mat is getting old now. It's very important here to be able to have real good stability in your feet. Your mat should be able to hang on to the feet. Your feet aren't sliding out from under you and you're losing control of the pose. So you see, I haven't really changed anything except for I have got more distance between heel to heel. The other thing I want you to notice is that I'm not leaning forward. I'm not reaching like this. And this is the same whether you're here or back up here. I'm not reaching for the other side of the room and tipping my body forward. My knee and my ankle are in position with each other. You can see my ankle and my knee are in line with each other. I'm not lunging forward like this past my toes, and I'm not too straight in my stance. Now, I would rather you erred on the side of being a little bit too straight in your stance than being out here in your stance. Hips, feet position. Got my heel back just a little bit further. My heels are in line. I'm working very hard now to keep my balance because the inline of the feet is making me work a little harder. You'll feel it. And you might even find that you are not in balance when you're in this particular posture. That is an indicator you need to bring that back foot a little closer to you. Find your balance. This is the most important part. My body is nice and relaxed. It's in the middle. It's not leaning forward. It's not leaning back. I'm not straightening out this leg trying to reach for that side or lunging forward with my chest trying to reach for that side. I'm finding that middle ground right here. And we're going to, just scooching my foot forward a little bit because I can feel as I bend down into this that I was going past my ankle. And you'll be able to feel this too. You'll be able to feel once you've found the perfect sweet spot. When you're not in line, you'll find it. You'll feel it. You'll say, oh, something feels wrong. Then you're just going to tweak things a little bit until you feel that comfortable, centered, balanced feeling. Balance is important in Warrior 2. So work on the balancing part before you work on kicking your leg way, way back behind you and getting into a really fancy lunge. So that's all there is to Warrior 2. From Warrior 2, we can move into a couple of other things. And we're going to work on that in the next video. Bye for now. Warrior 2.